In this video, we're going to look at what are the major test phases and how you can define and make a decision if this is something that you would like to execute or if this is something that's not applicable to your project. So I launched Microsoft Excel, and here I'm going to create a tab called Test Phases. And in this tab, we're going to define the grid that will have multiple columns. So the first column will have a test phase. Next one would be objective of the test phase. Then we'll have entry criteria, and we'll have exit criteria, and then we'll have deliverables. So I'm going to expand this a little bit so we can see what's in each column. And the first test phase I'd like to bring up would be assembly test. So for example, in mobile world, let's say that we're developing a Dropbox applications that's integrated with Dropbox, which needs to retrieve the data and be able to save the data into Dropbox location. So assembly test in this case would be just a validation of this particular piece of functionality, indicating whether application is successful, saving and creating a file at Dropbox, and then retrieving the file could be two test cases. Or if it's not successful doing that, that would be kind of the objective of assembly test. And any application could be broken into multiple components, and really the purpose of assembly test is to understand the interactions of related components and making sure that they're properly working together. So Dropbox is just one of the examples. Another example could be stock ticker, right? Maybe application needs to show retrieve and display up-to-date information on the price of particular stocks selected by the users, maybe Apple Computer or Microsoft, and that would be integration with the provider of such information and ability to display this information on the screen. And in the example of mobile application, I'm just gonna indicate that this is gonna be integration between mobile app and Dropbox storage. So this would be the objective, and objective truly would be validation of integration. Now what you see is that it extended across columns. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click wrap text, and it became multi-line. So as we're adding more data, what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a header in bold, and I'm going to highlight the row that has that, and I'm also going to create a grid with all borders, and also make sure that its text is aligned to the top, so this way it just looks more professional, and save it. Make sure I'm not losing any data. Next step, let's look at the entry criteria. So what this is, it's the criteria of what's happening, what needs to happen before we can enter the test, the assembly test. And in this particular case, the entry criteria would be obviously mobile component needs to be developed, right? Developed. So this would be one criteria. Second criteria might be the fact that we need to have a Dropbox account, right? So Dropbox account created. Another criteria, Dropbox account has read write permission. So as you can see what this is, and you can probably use a bullets or some other separator here, this entry criteria lists everything that needs to happen before we can start validating the application, make sure it successfully works. Now, it may not be application, might be separate components. A lot of times application, especially large application, is written in such a way that components developed all over the world, and you just need to validate integration, what's called an interface between those components, and making sure that they work. This is where assembly test comes handy. Next thing, we will look at the exit criteria for the assembly test. And the key exit criteria would be that all test scenarios executed. Next criteria might be all defects have been logged. And the last one might be that all critical defects resolved. And what's interesting about this is the fact that it's up to the testing team or project team to decide what are the entry and what are the exit criterions. A lot of times organizations do have the predefined list, but sometimes project teams have flexibility, especially in projects where they choose to start. This adds rigor into the process and helps set the expectations of what's successful and what's not successful exit or entry criteria. Sometimes organizations may choose to define percentage of the cases resolved, or maybe say all critical and high defects resolved, or 80% of critical defects are resolved. We are ready for the next phase of the project. And the last column here represents the deliverables, and here we are going to add what is going to be developed as part of this phase. And two key things that I can see being developed would be the test scripts. This is assembly test scripts, as well as the issue log, which is a separate deliverable which we will look at in the subsequent videos. You might be wondering what are the other test phases, and I'm going to list them all, and then we'll look at the objectives and other parameters of each test. So the next ones on the list might be application product test. And this is the phase where the key components of the applications are being tested, and all the functionality of the application will be tested and potentially retested. Another phase of the project might be integration test. And this is where integration with other big applications is being tested. Let's say that Microsoft Word, for example, allows copy and paste data into Excel or into Access or into PowerPoint. So that's the integration test, where we're testing integration of Microsoft Word with another application, which is Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Access. In the mobile world, the integration might be over the network, because applications on a lot of devices do not have opportunity to talk to each other. So data could be exchanged via medias like a Dropbox or a database or some other mechanisms that allow and beneficial for the users. So that's what's going to be covered as part of the integration test. Next phase might be performance test. This is where some key performance characteristics of the applications are being tested, and the user looks at how fast particular operations are performed, and what if anything needs to be improved in terms of performance. For example, as part of performance test, multiple users could be using the database or retrieving the data or saving the data at the same time. this could be simulated or could be multiple actual people executing the test at the same time. And the simulation typically creates multiple sessions and allows users to save the data at the same time, maybe using different user accounts or different profiles. And the last phase I would like to bring up would be regression test phase. And as part of this phase, typically if it's let's say release 2 of the application, you would want to test all the features of the release 1 and make sure that everything that used to work before continues to work in the current version of the application. This is typically necessary if your application product test and integration test only covers the new features of the application and doesn't cover the features that have been already developed. Because for regression test, if we cover old features of the application as part of regression test and new features as part of the application product test and integration test, then we have a full coverage of the application. So let's quickly complete the remaining grids in this box. So for application product test, the key objective is to make sure it's a validation of product requirements, validation that product requirements are met. Right, so that's the key objective, and I'm going to use wrap text feature of Excel again. And the key here is all application components developed, right? And I'm going to use wrap text again, and what I can do here, I can probably apply it to all the cells in my document. This way I don't have to type it over and over again. And in the exit criteria, we can probably copy and paste. So we have all test scenarios executed for this phase of the product test. All defects have been logged, and all critical defects resolved, and probably would be the same set of deliverables. So for integration test, it's a validation of end-to-end business process. And here, as I gave you an example, could be you start your business process in Excel and you finish it in PowerPoint or Word, or you copy and paste the data into the database. And here the entry criteria might be assembly test completed and application product test completed, and exit criteria might be the same. And again, as you work through this with the project team, this criteria are being customized and entered based on the project needs. Some even the entire phases of testing might be skipped, like performance test. Typically it's not a good thing, or regression test might be skipped for the benefit of expediting the delivery of the product to the end user. So the next testing is performance test, and this is where we have validation of system under stress conditions, where expected volumes are being exceeded. And we can say that this is all three phases completed, and we also can say integration test phase completed. And I'm just gonna copy this, oops, all test scenarios executed. Here we can also say that multiple user accounts set up and configured to execute multi-session tests. So what I'm gonna do now is align the text to the top, and we will cover the last phase of the testing that's on this doc. And regression testing is the validation of functionality that was built as part of previous releases. And we can just say here that assembly, application product test, and integration test completed. A performance test typically is not a prerequisite for the regression testing. Exit criteria might be the same and deliverables might be the same. So as part of this video, we created the key phases of testing with their objectives, entry criteria, exit criteria, and deliverables. And we listed everything that might be useful for each identified test phase. Thanks for watching this video, and see you next time.